He comes home early, expecting silence, and finds his penthouse transformed into a marketplace. Watches, cufflinks, even his desk paperweight, all tagged with prices and QR codes. His staff and neighbors stand guilty at his own dining table, a mother whispering the unthinkable. Her infant son will die without surgery, and bureaucracy has locked the door. In that instant, the billionaire who built a company on efficiency must decide whether mercy can outrun margin. One question hangs in the room like a drumbeat. How much is a heartbeat worth? The plane touches down 30 minutes ahead of schedule, and the city is still holding its breath between work and weekend. From the back seat of the car, the skyline looks like a pulse on a monitor, slow, steady, unbothered by my small change of plans. We take the expressway while my phone buzzes uselessly in airplane mode, and I watch the darkness peel away from glass towers I own more than a piece of. My driver, Ramon, doesn't know I've come home early. No one does. The conference in Geneva was canceled because a freak fog socked the runway and rerouted us before the first speech could begin. A coincidence, a hiccup, nothing cosmic about it. That's what I tell myself as we glide into the private drive beneath my building, and the garage gate swallows us whole like a mouth. I glance at my watch, one of those limited-run divers you have to know a guy to get, and think about the meeting I'll reclaim, the quiet night I'll salvage, the rare luxury of being alone in my own space. The elevator takes us to the penthouse without fuss. When the doors open, a breath of warm air curls around my shoulders. The hallway smells like jasmine from the rooftop planters and something else I can't place. The lights are low. I step out, my suitcase wheels whisper against marble. Behind my door I expect silence, the kind of expensive hush you only get from good insulation and a better neighborhood. Instead, I hear voices, soft and overlapping, a braided rope of laughter and murmurs pulled tight. I stop, one hand on the bronze handle, the other fishing for my phone. No alerts from my security system, no intruder alarms. My staff knows my schedule. My housekeeper, Lita, keeps a calendar that runs circles around the board. There is no reason for anyone to be in my home at 9:47 on a Thursday, and yet there it is. People. I glance at Ramon and raise a hand before he can speak. "Wait here," I say low. I key in the code and push the door open. The first thing that hits me is the smell. Not jasmine anymore, but garlic and rice. A kitchen warmth I don't allow in this space, because expensive ventilation and museum-quality art don't love cooking smoke. The second thing is the light. Every chandelier dimmed to a candle-bright hush, strings of fairy bulbs laced around the bases of sculptures my curator assured me were significant. The third thing, the one that takes the breath clean out of me, is the dining table. My long ebony table, the one carved from a single slab flown in from a forest that no longer exists, is covered in my things. Watches in velvet trays, cufflinks. A cuffed stack of limited edition vinyl, a charity polo from Monaco, the bronze paperweight that lives on my office desk, one of the Patek boxes, open, empty, every item with a tiny hand-cut price tag, numbers written in a careful hand, taped beside QR codes printed on copier paper. Around the table, my staff and people I only half recognize are talking in a hush that knows it does not belong here. Lita stands at the head of the table like a conductor, hair pinned back, sensible shoes despite the floor. Ramon is here, which means he didn't wait in the hall. So is the doorman, Augie, red vest, swapped for a faded T-shirt. Two baristas from the lobby cafe, the night security guard from my building, a janitor from Helios, my company, still in his navy shirt with the patch. There is a little girl playing with the corner of one of my Hermes blankets like it's a field of grass, and her mother, no older than 20, watches her with a look that is equal parts apology and permit us this one grace, in my home, in my sanctum, with my things. Lita turns and sees me. For a heartbeat, everything freezes, people like deer in someone else's headlights, And then the room exhales at once, a ragged, guilty breath. Lita's face does a fluttering dance between panic and relief and lands on something like resolve. "Sir," she says, and bows her head a fraction. "You're home early?" "You think?" The word is sharper than I mean it to be, a blade as quick as a reflex. "What is this?" No one speaks. The fairy lights hum. The little girl drops the edge of the blanket and tucks her hands behind her back as if that makes her invisible. Lita steps out from behind the table and folds her hands in front of her like a school principal prepared to take a few kicks. "Mr. Vale," she says, we were not stealing." My head jerks toward the empty watchbox without my permission. Could have fooled me. "We will explain," she says. "Please, it is delicate." "You think?" I echo. My voice shouldn't sound like this. I've spent years flattening my temper into something people will follow into hell and not notice the heat. "Explain, now." Ramon steps forward, palms up. "Boss, let's not—" "Ramon," I say, and he stops. The gesture is enough. He's been with me long enough to read it like a road sign. He lowers his eyes. The janitor clears his throat and shifts his weight. Augie stares at the ceiling like if he pretends hard enough he's an air vent, not a man. It's the young mother who speaks. She says it so softly, I almost miss it. "It's for Luca," she whispers, and when I turn my head, her eyes are the color of a storm. "My son?" I blink. Lita touches the woman's shoulder. "This is Maya," she says. "She works in the lobby cafe, Mr. Vale, the one who made you that ginger tea when you lost your voice after the investor day. Her boy, he needs surgery. We thought we had time to raise it, but the doctor moved up the date, Sunday. We didn't know what else to do. We thought—" She swallows. "We thought we could borrow from you." Borrow. The word hangs there like a fragile bridge between two cliffs, and I am standing on one side with my fists clenched. Borrow by selling my things? "We priced everything high," Augie blurts, voice cracking, "like too high, so we wouldn't actually sell much. People will donate, and then we will put it back. We have a list. We took pictures." He points to a legal pad at the end of the table where there are neat columns: item, price, name, QR confirmation. My name is on nothing. Small relief. My first instinct is an old one, and it roars in like a freight train. "Control, shut this down. Call security. Remind everyone where the lines are." The words line up behind my teeth and wait. Then I see Lita's hands. They're shaking. I have never seen Lita's hands shake. She's been with me since the month my company went public, when the cameras wanted my kitchen as much as my face. She has watched me leave and watched me return. She has set a plate for my father when he was still trying to forgive me, and cleared it when he pushed it away untouched. She has never asked me for anything more than proper notice if I plan to host a fundraiser, because, sir, the florists need time. She did not ask now. She invited half the building into my home, the home I sometimes forget is a home and not an object, out of something that looks, from where I stand, like desperation. "Why do you need to sell anything?" I ask, and I hate that my voice has softened because it feels like I've given ground. "We have insurance. We have a foundation." Maya flinches. "Sir," she says, the word trembling, "the insurance denied us. They said congenital means it was there when he was born." She says the next part as if I might punish her for the syllables. "Pre-existing." A trickle of cold runs beneath my skin. I glance at Ramon, then at the security guard who stares at the floor with a shame that isn't his to carry. Lita lifts the legal pad without reading it and then puts it down again. "We tried to appeal," she says. "They said the next review would be in 3 weeks. The surgeon said Sunday because he is on rotation then, and there is a slot. After that—" She doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. "We went to HR to ask for the emergency fund. They said because it is the 4th quarter, there are restrictions. They said they'll convene the committee next month." I feel it then, a cold flare in my gut that I recognize too well, the sudden replay of a conversation in an office 3 floors below mine, the CFO tapping a slide and saying, "If we tighten in Q4, We can protect margin without spooking the market, and me nodding because the market is a dragon you keep fed, or it eats you alive. Someone had mentioned a few scenarios. Someone had said we'd add exceptions later. Later never came. It never does unless you drag it by the throat into the room. My phone is out before I know it, the screen carving blue light into my palm. I pull up my email and read my own words in an executive summary. Temporary restrictions on discretionary funds in Q4. Reevaluate in January. The word discretionary is a neat suit we put on somebody else's emergency until it looks like budget dust. I scroll further, and there's a message I only skimmed, one that starts with, "I'm sorry to escalate," and ends with "Child Surgery Sunday," and in between a paragraph that the assistant to the VP of HR wrote so carefully I barely noticed it at the time. I never saw the part about Maya. I never saw the photo of a baby named Luca because it was an attachment, and I swipe past attachments like gnats. You came into my home, I say, because some parts of me still want a fight, and this is the only sentence they can find. Without permission. Lita takes it without flinching. Yes. You plan to sell my things. Yes. To pay for a surgery my company should have covered. Lita opens her mouth and then closes it again. She looks at Maya. Maya looks like she might fold into the carpet and disappear. The little girl, who I now realize is not Maya's but belongs to the janitor, her name will be Aaliyah, I'll learn later, picks up a piece of the legal pad torn off and draws a circle on it with a pink pen. The silence is a held breath. I can end it. I can end all of this by saying 3 words. They gather on my tongue like rain. How much? I ask. Half the room seems to lean forward, and then they catch themselves, embarrassed at their own hope. Ramon clears his throat. Boss, the surgeon's fees and hospital deposit, the medicine. It is not small. Say the number. 5.2 million, Maya says, so fast it sounds like one word. Philippine pesos, my brain calculates automatically, because even shock can't kill the part of you that does math like breathing. $100,000. I spend that much on a painting I don't love because it fits a wall. I spend that much on a sponsor slot at a gala and never read the program. I don't say anything. I take my phone and open the banking app with my biometric thumbprint. I don't like showing my hand like this. Money is an instrument, not a performance, but we're long past pride. Give me the hospital's wire details, I say. Someone text me the surgeon's name. Lita inhales like she might argue, like she might remind me she did not want charity, but time. But Maya speaks first. Sir, she whispers, we will pay you back. I'll work double. You'll take care of your son, I say, and I don't recognize my voice because the steel has melted out of it. That's the debt. I swallow. We will fix the insurance. We will fix the fund. But tonight we pay for the surgeon. Where is Luca now? On the 9th floor, Maya says. The hospital said to keep him until Sunday so they can watch him. My mother is with him. Her throat closes around the rest. Ramon, I say, and he lifts his head. Get the car. We're going to the hospital. Lita hesitates. Sir, we can handle. Lita, I say, and now I am simply tired. Tired the way a roof must be tired after the storm leaves, not because the wind was personal, but because it dragged itself over everything without asking. Please put my things back. We'll settle the kitchen tomorrow. She nods, but her face is still a battle between relief, gratitude, and a stubborn dignity that refuses to be bought. I get it. For the first time tonight, I really do. The hospital at 10:30 is a different city. The lights are brighter than my apartment. The hallways smell like antiseptic and something sadder. Nurses move like chess pieces, each with a scheduled place to be, a clear purpose. Somewhere down a corridor I haven't walked are people whose whole world is the small square of a bed, whose whole future is the beep of a machine. When I say my name to the desk clerk, eyebrows rise. Then the rest happens with a speed that makes me dislike the universe in new ways. Doors open because they recognize the power in a last name, and not the urgency in a mother's voice. It's not a revelation. I built a career on this, but it stings. Outside a glass room, a woman with Maya's cheekbones rises halfway out of a chair. She's been crying recently and pretending not to for much longer. Inside, a baby sleeps with his small chest hopping in a ragged rhythm and blue lines taped to his skin. You can see the architecture of his heart on the monitor, lines jittering. I put a hand on the glass without thinking, as if I could steady the waves from outside the aquarium. Next to me, Maya has both hands on the glass too, but hers are palms, splayed, a prayer pressed against the transparent border. If you asked me why I built Helios, I would tell you something about connecting people, about software that makes minutes matter, about efficiency as a kind of love. But watching Maya look at her son, I know that I built it for the wrong God. This is love. Standing on a tile floor in terrible lighting at 11 at night, trying to keep a heartbeat from losing its way. A resident in green scrubs explains the surgery in neat bullet points that my brain translates into rows on a spreadsheet: risk, percentage, cost. The attending surgeon appears at one point, a man with headphones hanging around his neck like a stethoscope he forgot to put away. He is cautious with his hope and exact with his verbs. When he says, "We can do it Sunday," there is a softness at the edge, like the memory of a smile. I take a step toward him. "Do it," I say. "We'll pay any pre-admission deposit right now." He blinks, and then, the world in miniature, things move. The cashier's office opens a window. Someone prints forms. My thumbs fly because typing numbers has always been easier for me than saying apologies. I wire the deposit. I send a personal guarantee for the balance. The surgeon shakes my hand and says that what we need now is rest, because the body is an engine that runs better on sleep. He says he'll be back at dawn to check Luca's color. He says he'll see us Sunday. He leaves. The world shrinks to the blue line on the monitor and the sound of air moving through vents. Lita and the others arrive one by one with bags of food I suspect they were planning to serve at my dining table. They set it on a plastic chair and hand paper plates to nurses who look like they have not eaten since the start of time. The night security guard, who said almost nothing in my living room, tells a joke that makes the doorman laugh until he has to wipe his eyes with a corner of his shirt. We are a strange family suddenly bound by the quiet demands of an infant heart. When I finally sit, it is in a chair that feels like it was designed to make you grateful for discomfort. Maya sits beside me, her shoulder a careful inch from mine. It would be easy to say something now about gratitude, to reach for the familiar script where the rich man becomes generous and the poor woman becomes grateful. The script is there. It has won awards. I don't say anything. I watch the monitors. I watch the way Maya traces circles on the glass with one finger, far enough to leave no smear. I watch the way Lita stands a little behind us, like a guardian, like a door. At 2 a.m, I call my CFO. It goes to voicemail. I text him instead. "Urgent. Call me at 7 a.m. Then I forward the email thread with the escalations we ignored, attach the bank confirmation like a punctuation mark, and add a single line. This is what we fix first. I call the head of HR and do the same, this time adding, "Find me the person who said January." At 3, I close my eyes and sleep like falling down a hole of my own design. I wake to a hand on my shoulder and the smell of coffee that tastes like a sunrise. It is still dark outside. The city is a black scarf sprinkled with the idea of stars. Maya's mother is asleep in the chair across from me with her mouth open, in a perfect O. Maya looks like she has aged both backward and forward, younger with relief, older with the weight she has carried in her arms. Lita is talking to a nurse about laundry. The surgeon is back. He checks Luca, nods, says what you say when the numbers are what they should be, and then says he will meet us on the other side of Sunday. The day is a slow climb. I go home to shower because there is a meeting with the CFO and HR head at 9 sharp, and I want to look like the man who deserves to win the fights he has started. When I open my door this time, my home is my home again. The fairy lights are gone. The table is empty. The legal pad sits at the edge with one new line. Paid by AV, fund later. In Lita's neat hand, the later has a question mark like a dare. The meeting at 9 is not a debate. It is a rewrite. The CFO clears his throat and says something about guiding principles. I stop him with a hand that does not shake. I signed the memo, I say. The principle was me. It was wrong. He blinks. He has never heard me use that word in a sentence that includes my own name. HR arrives with a stack of policies that look like they've been fed through a shredder and reassembled by grief. We open the fund with immediate effect. We remove the quarter-based restrictions because events that require mercy do not check calendars. We add a clause that says if a request uses the words child or surgery, you skip the committee and go directly to yes. We send a note to every manager that says if they sit on a request, they're fired. At the end, the HR head says there will be cost implications, and I say yes. And she looks at me like she didn't expect me to agree with the obvious. On Sunday, we stand behind glass again. The fairy lights have been replaced by the white, unforgiving brightness of a surgical wing. The little girl, Aaliyah, gives Maya a drawing of a sun with too many rays because people always think the answer is more light. Maya's mother presses a rosary into my hand, and I hold it because refusing would feel like spitting. The surgeon arrives, headphones around his neck, nods. "We're ready," he says. I bend down without thinking and touch Luca's foot with one finger. It is warm. A nurse wheels him away. The doors swing shut with a soft thud that feels like a chapter closing and a whole new book opening all at once. Hours later, after a stretch of time that feels wider than most of my life, the surgeon returns with the expression, "Surgeons know how to wear," that says we did our job and luck did not trip us on the way out. He talks about flow and pressure and how the heart is not so much a machine as a miracle you have to cooperate with. He says Luca is in recovery. He says we did well. He says we can go see him now, one at a time. Maya collapses and rises in the same breath. I have never seen someone cry in gratitude so quietly. Lita steps away like she will give the floor to the person who has earned it more than anyone. We go in pairs and then singly, and when it is my turn, I stand beside a sleeping child with a bandage and think of all the spreadsheets that will never be able to show me this kind of return. The story could end here. The easy version does. Billionaire pays, baby lives, hearts grow 3 sizes like a seasonal cartoon. But the week that follows refuses that neatness. Monday at Helios, the town hall runs long. I stand on a stage and tell 1,000 people and several thousand more on a live feed that we got it wrong. I say the words out loud, and there's a sound in the room I can't put a name to, like relief, like disbelief, like air returning to a world that had been short of it. I announce the Vale Promise, an emergency fund seeded not by corporate discretionary, but by the sale of things that have taken up too much space in my life for too long. The watch collection goes first. The car I drove once and photographed often goes the next day. A painting that the curator loved and I didn't is on a truck before lunch. A reporter calls to ask if this is a stunt, and I tell her with a smile I've used on trickier questions that if everyone who ran a company had a stunt like this, it would be fine by me. The money builds a scaffolding around what we refuse to let fall. But money is scaffolding. You still need people to climb. I ask Lita to chair the small committee that reads the letters we can't legislate. She looks at me like she has spent her life watching me from a polite distance, and now I have turned around and asked her name. Yes, she says, but we will do it with dignity. No pictures of sad children unless their mothers ask. Of course, I say. because the idea that I would want pictures makes me nauseated. And, sir, she adds, no word of discretionary. If something is about a heartbeat, we don't call it a suggestion. I say yes again. Every yes feels like a window opening. There is fallout. There always is when you move money from where it's been sleeping. A board member texts me a long concern about precedent. I call him and say when the precedent is mercy, I am comfortable. An investor sends a letter that uses the word fiduciary like a cudgel. I draft a reply and then delete it and call him instead. He listens with the phone on speaker, and when he finally speaks, he tells me his sister died when she was 8, and his parents spent the rest of their life paying off the debt. He says he's old enough now to allow rare things to make him change his mind. He says he will support the fund. I hang up and stare out the window at the building across the street where a woman waters a plant on a balcony and think that sometimes the world will meet you halfway, but you have to walk the first half blind. On Friday afternoon, Maya brings Luca to the office in a blanket with planets on it. He sleeps through the applause. Maya wears a blouse someone pressed with more care than I press even my speeches. She wants to thank me. I tell her not to. Thank the surgeon. Thank Lita. Thank the man who started the rumor that my company doesn't care. Rumors start fires that make you look for water. She smiles shyly and says, "Thank you for letting me keep my pride." I almost say I didn't because of the money, because of the spectacle, because I am still myself and my shadow is long. But she says, "You asked me how much," and her eyes are clear in the way of someone who has not slept enough but has found a way to live with the math of it. You didn't ask me why I was alone. We hold a small celebration in the lobby cafe. The baristas pull perfect hearts in the foam because that's the kind of corny trick that gets us through a Monday or a war. Ramon tells the story of how he once drove my father to the beach in the middle of the night because the older man needed to hear the ocean shout at him. Augie confesses he was the one who suggested the fairy lights because it felt less like a crime. Lita, who had left a note on my table with a question mark, removes the question mark in person. "We will call it a promise," she says, "not a fund." The people around us nod like a choir. That night I go home, truly home, for the first time in a week. The house is itself again, but I notice the ways in which it is not. On my desk there's a stack of Polaroids that did not exist before Sunday. The fairy-lit room, a blurry plate of adobo, Aaliyah holding a sign that says, "For Luca," in a child's dense handwriting. Lita must have left them, as if to say, a house remembers better with evidence. I pick up the photo of the table with my things spread like an autopsy and feel a heat rise in my face that is not shame anymore, but something purer, like gratitude for the slap you didn't want, but needed. I walk to the window. The city is a humming hive, the tallest towers still flicking on and off lights, like a code I'm supposed to read. My phone buzzes on the counter, another email, another meeting. I ignore it and instead pick up a small object I had missed earlier, a tiny paper circle cut from a legal pad with a message in pink pen. It's in Aaliyah's handwriting, the letters fat and earnest. It says, "A heart is a drum. Keep it going." I laugh unexpectedly out loud, and then I sit down and do something silly. I write it on a sticky note in my own block letters and stick it to my monitor. The richest men in the world keep to-do lists. This will be the top item on mine for longer than a quarter. The following months do not make the news in the ways PR likes. There isn't a single photograph of a giant check. There are no ribbon cuttings. There are spreadsheets and quiet payouts. There are managers who stop asking permission and start using judgment. There are stories I never tell anyone because they are not mine. The intern's father, the coder's sister, the cafeteria lady's husband, and there are updates that come to me unexpected in the elevator or in the hallway. He's home now. They removed the cast. She started school. For everyone, there is an earlier version of me that wants to categorize the data, and there is the new version that lets it be simply what it is, proof that my wealth was supposed to bend like light toward this.